it doesn't look like the war in Iran is going to end anytime soon, and so I wanted to give a brief explanation of like what's going on, how did we get here, and where can we go. So Iran is a theocratic republic dictatorship. That sounds really confusing because it is. There is no other government system like this. They have the Ayatollah at the top, who is chief religious leader and chief government leader. He is selected by an assembly of experts, so in theory approved by these religious clerics who are officials, but those officials were chosen by the last Ayatollah and approved by the last assembly, which was chosen by the Ayatollah. The reason I'm just explaining this really quickly is because it is in theory a republic, but it's very, very confusing. But the reason is that they have all these systems so that if you cut off the head, there are 10 more to replace him. It's impossible, basically, to knock out the leadership and expect the regime to fall. The regime is built to withstand that. It's intentional. It's diabolical that this religious leader who is radical rules over a largely secular Iran. Most Iranians are not religious, and Iran is wildly college educated. Like 50% have a post-secondary degree. That's higher than America and Britain and much of Europe. It's a very educated country that hates their government. Only 20% max support the government, according to polling. That's all important context, because the reason we're in this situation is because there were protests, radical protests. Like, for the first time, there were serious protests that people thought could amount to regime change about a few months ago. Those protests ended with the Iranian government opening machine guns and running over protesters, killing 30 to 40,000 people. I'm speechless because that's truly just something so hard to fathom that a government would do to its own people. It's also just important to remember that this is one of the most evil governments and regimes to ever exist in human history. Even when this war might not be the best path, it's important to never assume that the enemy of your enemy is not your friend. Yeah, like that. The enemy of your enemy is not your friend, always. Never. I hate that philosophy, because this is a terrible government. Anyway, that made the regime seem weaker. The regime has a lot of economic problems that cause these protests. These protests were not just about the religious oppression, the heaviness of the air in Tehran. Anyone who's ever been to Tehran or Iran will tell you that the air is heavier than in the rest of the world. Is why people were protesting, because the Iranian government has basically allowed rampant hyperinflation. They've been sanctioned by the world because of their pursuit of a nuclear weapon and ballistic missiles. And they've basically robbed their people. They've murdered their people. They spend all their money on the military and on funding this international network of terror that they use to counterbalance the fact that they are just, an aging regional power, not this global superpower like the United States or China or another country like that. That's what they would want to be, but they're just simply not. And we're bombing them. And so we've bombed them, and we've killed a bunch of their top leaders. America has. And, the old adage, oh, how much worse can things get? They can get worse. Yeah, they can get worse. Because the leaders at the top were radical, crazy, evil people. Who's below them? Who replaced them? Somehow even crazier, more radical, evil people. Like the son of the Ayatollah. The government killed the Ayatollah, assassinated him. Crazy that we can assassinate the leader of another country. That's wild military power that was showcased. His son was appointed by the remaining clerics to take over that position. Unclear if his son is cognizant, alive, hasn't been seen, but in theory, the son of the Ayatollah is the new Ayatollah. He was the one who led the crackdown, where they killed 40,000 people. So he is not exactly someone we can negotiate with to end this war. And so that's who we're left with. The government of Iran sees that they can cut off this Strait of Hormuz, where 20% of the world's oil passes. The government of Iran has seen that they can cut off the flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz. That's where all of the oil that Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, they refine in the Gulf. That's how they get it out to the rest of the world. And it's it's closed. The Iranian government has been able to close it through ships and mining. The Strait mining is where you put underwater mines that will explode in the Strait. They've put those. They've got missiles they'll fire. They're boarding ships. Bad stuff. No oil. So Saudi Arabia now has to send their oil in a pipeline across the desert, and it just can't get as much oil out. And so Iran sees that and they're like, oh, we are choking the rest of the world. Let's keep going. They do not care how many people die. This is also a fundamental difference. How do you win a war? How do you negotiate with others who do not care about their people? They don't. And so they also have their specific type of radical theocracy idolizes this concept of martyrdom. Like, being a martyr is the highest honor. To die for your cause is a high honor. Well, I'm from America, and I don't think we want to die. And so, fundamental difference in the risk allotment that we're willing to take versus what they're willing to accept. And so now we're left in the situation where we're facing a hydra. You chop off the head, 10 more appear, each more vicious than the last. We're facing that. We're facing an international oil crisis. We're facing a regime that does not care if people continue to die, while we do care if our people die, or this Americans, regular everyday people like you and me care, and we'll put pressure on our government to stop having people die. And you cannot change a regime when it is designed to withstand this kind of thing. The people are so terrified of rising up and opposing it, and they have no weapons. Terry fully believes. And so we face that. We face, you can't overturn a regime without the support of the people, but they have no ability to help. You cannot overthrow a regime without a ground invasion, which would be a terrible idea in Iran. It's so mountainous. The last, I think, person to conquer Iran was Alexander the Great, maybe. Not exactly an easy thing to do. And oil is, $100 and something a gallon. And so we're left in a challenging situation where it's not clear where to go from here. It's not clear what to do, because now that we've killed those top leaders, now there's more radical people in charge. If the purpose, it's unclear what the purpose was. But if the purpose was to stop these radicals from getting a nuclear weapon, now there are even more radical people in charge. So do we cut our losses and leave, and now they're gonna get a nuke? How close were they to the nuke? It's super unclear. Just unclear what we're doing, unclear where to go. But I wanted to provide context.